John. I just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback here. Your site's looking really good. I think you've really tightened up some of the areas that that we talked about earlier. The real main thing I have, because everything else is pretty small, is just to think that okay, this screen right here is 1280, and this is like the size of smaller windows, like anything under a high res 15 inch. So this is what I see when I first open it. It's so at 1280, you're getting a lot of, the balance being thrown off a little bit. So when the screen gets bigger to 1400, then everything's lined up. So you just might want to be aware of that, because a lot of people are going to look at, I know it's hard to decide what size to make these, but just to think about that. And when it gets smaller, it looks great. I mean, there's just the intermediate steps that that has some of the empty spaces. So when it gets smaller, it looks really cool. Were you thinking? I like how you're making this part responsive. Were you thinking about making the other elements? Because I think it'd be cool if the pen and your picture could respond a little bit. It doesn't have to get really small, but I think it might be kind of an interesting, I don't know, it's just something to play with. It's not like a point deduction or anything, but we're just trying to get the best portfolio as possible, right? I mean, I personally would create a little bit more space in between these lines, just so it doesn't look like a big clump of text when you look at it. Text is really viewed as an image by most people, so they see something and it just looks like texture. So you want to just I would add a little bit more space, but again, that's your choice. I would probably make the tagline a little bit smaller, but that's just me. And everything else looks pretty good. I did notice too that when when you click to the photography, it's there's just some of the same issues with the layout in terms of the the different size the screen's on. And another thing you might want to think about, I love your photographs, is and I like that this is pretty intuitive, that this goes back home. Another thing you might want to think about too is, I know you're adding some text, but sometimes if it's you might want to talk a little bit about the client and what the goals were a little bit more specifically. But again, that's that's pretty much your your choice. So down here is all these things. So let's see what the footer does when it gets smaller. Yeah, see, I like them all close together to begin with, but that's my personal choice, that I would probably have them all close together. So yeah, that's my main suggestions. And you might want to have some type of a contact page, or some kind of a link to like a little downloadable PDF. Oh, this looks a little pixelated here. You might want to take care of that, because your portfolio is really pretty clean and tight. You don't want to have a little bit of pixelation. It kind of takes away from, I don't know, design. Most people wouldn't even notice, but designers notice all those little nitpicky details. So that's my main suggestion. I did notice that you had quite a few validation errors. So be sure to use these things, because this one's quite a bit. There's and a lot of them are just having alt, putting an alt element in there. But I pretty much stick with the rubrics, as you probably know by now. So I just everything that's in the rubric. So that's the only thing that I would suggest, is just dealing with that 1280 screen size, and just having maybe just center everything to begin with. So when it gets smaller, if you set that container, and then when it gets smaller, it's just going to collapse. But yeah, mostly all kind of nitpicky stuff. But yeah, you may want to incorporate it, may not. So it's it's totally up to you. Okay, so yeah, overall it looks good. Everything seems to be working. I didn't. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I clicked all of these. Oh, I see. And these go right to websites. So you might want to think about putting. Does this go back to your home? No. You might want to think about putting these to go back to your main page. just so because people, how they are, they're just gonna, I mean, I use key commands, but not everyone does. So anyway, it looks good, John. Yeah. So yeah, good job.